Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast. I'm sure a lot of you are joining us for the first time, so a quick introduction here. We are a Commander podcast, and joined with me each time for these podcasts is the Commander Clash crew. It's a group that we play with together, Commander, every single week, every single Friday, which you can find on this channel. So, the crew is me and Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. Hello, Seth.
Hello, Tomer. Glad to be here. Excited to talk new Magic cards.
Yes, indeed. And next we've got Richard. Thank you for joining, Richard.
Hello, Tomer. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And finally, we've got Krim. How you doing, Krim?
Yo, what's up, Tomer? Strixhaven. It's the set I've been waiting for.
Yup. And so this is the Commander Clash crew. We meet bi-weekly on just any sort of commander-related topic, and we talk about it for about an hour or so. And today, for this podcast, we have something super special. We are honored to present a full Commander Precon that was gifted to us to preview for free by Wizards of the Coast. So thank you so much for Wizards of the Coast for this opportunity. This is super awesome to get this exclusive preview of a full Commander Precon. So our deck is going to be Quantum Quandrix. This is a Simic Precon that showcases the Strixhaven College of Quandrix from the set. So it's all about blue and green together in this weird college. It's all about like math and sciences, and it's very cool. And we get to see an entire pre-constructed deck based on this sort of theme. So the deck is primarily a token deck. That is the primary purpose of the deck. It is a deck that is all about creating tokens and then supporting tokens in various ways, either by drawing cards off tokens, creating copies of tokens, ramping with tokens, all that and more you can find in this deck. And it also has a strong +1/+1 counter sub-theme that just basically is there to enhance your token strategy. So you make a bunch of tokens, then you enhance them with +1/+1 counters, and you win primarily with combat damage. So once you have your token army, you put counters on them to make them into lethal threats, and then you just smack face and win the game off that. So just a quick numbers count. The token strategy, I counted 32 cards that either care about creating tokens or enhancing your token cards. And for the +1/+1 counter strategy, I found 19 cards that either deal with counters or add counters to things. And there's a ton of overlap between the two themes as well. So if you're interested in any of these cool cards, this entire Precon, well, good news, folks. It's coming out real soon on April 23rd. This is when the Precon will be released. And if you want to support the show, you want to support this channel, the Commander YouTube channel that we have going on here, you could buy these pre-constructed decks, Quantum Quandrix, and all the other ones over at our sponsor, CardKingdom.com. If you use the affiliate link cardkingdom.com/MTG Goldfish, you can support the show, buy all these sweet new pre-constructed decks, and we'll be super thankful to go do that. Yay! Yeah, I'll keep that one. Fantastic. All right, so you now know what the deck is all about. It's all about tokens, and it has a +1/+1 counter sub-theme. So now, in this podcast, we're going to cover all the new cards. We're going to cover the best reprints that you can expect in the decks, and we're going to go over a little bit of a deep dive, make sure that all the ratios of this deck are looking good. So we want to make sure that it has the right amount of ramp, the right amount of card draw, and everything like that. So we're going to go over the ratios a little bit later on. But first, let's talk about the sweet new cards from this set. So let's start off with Seth. Can you tell us about the face of the Commander?
Yeah, so we have a new mythic legend, the face card of the deck. It's Quandrix and Nev Twincasters. So it is 2 a green and a blue for a legendary merfolk wizard. You get a 2/2. It has a new mechanic on it called Ward, and this has Ward 2. And what Ward means is whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays 2, and then if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. So Ward, kind of like Frost Titan, I think that's where my mind went immediately. We've seen this ability before on cards in the past, but now it's keyworded as Ward. So a way to protect your sweet legend. And then the ability on Quandrix and Niv, it's kind of like half of doubling season, I would say. You get twice as many tokens, or like literally an anointed procession, which we've seen be a really powerful ability. Like doubling season is kind of a staple of token decks and commanders, and now you can have this on your legend in the command zone, so you get it every game. And as Tomer mentioned in the intro, the deck's got a lot of token makers. Like that's the main theme of the set. So with 31, I think you said, cards that make tokens, you're gonna have something to double the tokens of as the game goes along. So I actually think this card is a really sweet legend, both for the Precon, and I think it's gonna be pretty popular in Commander in general, because people just love their token double strategies in the Commander format.
Absolutely. I mean, this is essentially the effect is parallel lives in the command zone, and it's 4 mana, and it's a creature, so the synergies there is absolutely fantastic. I also want to quickly mention that the ward mechanic is a new evergreen keyword that we're not just going to be seeing in Strixhaven, but we're going to be seeing it as a common thing going forward, perhaps as like a slightly nerfed version of hexproof. Maybe we're going to be seeing less hexproof and more ward in the future as well. But
yes!
that is something that has been mentioned to us by Wizards of the Coast, is that ward is an evergreen keyword. So we're going to be seeing more of this keyword in the future as well.
So I want to point out that it is parallel lives, but the important thing is it's on a creature, and you're in a blue deck, which means the potential for cloning works. So you don't want to use a regular clone because then it'll just die. You want to use a clone that makes a non-legendary copy of a creature. So there are cards like maybe Helm of the Host, which isn't in the deck, but could be a sweet upgrade where you can just start making copies of Atrix, and then your tokens just get out of control, right? They double and double again and double again and double again. So the fact that it's on a creature lets you copy, and then you can get many, many, many parallel lives / doubling season effects going.
I mean, there's a famous partner that's in blue, Sakashima, that is going to be very happy with this. And because it's green, there's all these tutors that can get it as well. Creature-based tutors. So it's a very sweet card. All right, moving on. Richard, what is the second legendary creature that we have here?
All right, we have Dika Fractal Theorist, 4 in a blue, 5 CMC, 3/3 legendary creature, human wizard. And it comes with a new ability called Magecraft. When you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is that spell's mana value. And Dika comes with an ability, 3 in a blue, target creature token can't be blocked this turn. So a lot of things to unpack here. We have a new fractal token. They're basically 0/0s, but they come with +1/+1 counters. In this case, equal to the spell's mana value, which is the new word for converted mana cost. So you can cast spells and make tokens, and then you can give these tokens the ability to not be blocked. And then of course you have your hordes of fractals, which we're going to see later in the deck, but there are a lot of cards that make fractals and also pump fractals. So Dika is kind of an engine, and then also a finisher where you can just send your little fractal tokens, like hit them with the math, hit them with the knowledge, and finish them off.
Smashing in with math and science.
You know what? I'm sad though. I don't see a fractal anywhere. I actually want to see the fractal token. Is it actually a fractal? Like, or is it just like some random like crystalline shards? Like,
I think it's probably crystalline shards.
They gotta hit them with the actual math.
The magic of editing. You can see the fractal token, Ba-boom! Right there. Maybe, hopefully. if
We should get Krim
uh,
to draw a fractal token.
No, no.
I think that'll be it.
No.
Like if we don't find a fractal token image, an official one, you're just gonna be seeing a Krim image there. I think that is go ahead.
No.
Also to note, fractal, brand new creature type that we haven't seen before Strixhaven, and Magecraft is the new keyword with the Strixhaven set. So you might have seen Magecraft already pop up on previous previews if you've been keeping up with them, but this is a new keyword that we're seeing in Strixhaven, and you're going to be seeing it across all the colors, across all the colleges, and here we see it on a blue card, so that's also very sweet.
Yeah, it's usually something that rewards you for casting a spell or doing something. So
Casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell. That is the trigger. It's kind of like landfall, where it happens whenever a land enters the battlefield, you get a specific effect that's for the individual card. Magecraft is the exact same thing, where it's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get some sort of effect, but that effect is based on the individual card. So in this case, you get a fractal token equal to its mana value of that spell, which is really, really cool for this deck because all about fractals here, folks.
I will say I feel like this card's a little bit weak in the context of the Precon itself, just because it's not a super spell-heavy deck. When I see this card, I think of like Metallurgic Summonings, Talrand, Spellslinger-style cards, where you normally overload your deck with like as many spells as possible and try to like kind of go off with these cards. But looking at the Precon itself, it's got some spells, but I definitely wouldn't consider it a Spellslinger deck. So I'm kind of wondering how good it'll be if you just like pull out your Precon and play it. Maybe it'll be a little inconsistent, although it does fit the theme of the deck with the fractal synergies.
Yeah, it could potentially be a type of card that you may want to slot into other decks as well. And it might be even better off in a deck that is more focused on instants or sorceries, either as part of the 99, like a Talrand effect, or even as a commander. So that's exciting in its own regard. Yeah, in this one, it's not super loaded, overloaded in instants or sorceries. So you'll still get value out of it. And also that activated ability is really going to be really powerful in this deck, especially because it's all about tokens. So it is a way to get in damage, but the Magecraft ability probably is going to be more suitable elsewhere. All right, and then finally, we have another card showcasing another new keyword, Krim. Let us know about it.
this card's called Replication Technique, and it's 5 mana, it's 4 and a blue, it's a sorcery, and it has the new mechanic, Demonstrate. When you cast this spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Players may choose new targets for their copies. And then the card itself just creates a token that's a copy of target permanent you control. So this is going to once again add into the whole like duplicating all your tokens and all your spells and stuff. So I'm very excited to see a card like this because I love my cloning in like my Sakashima decks and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a political aspect to it too, right?
Yep.
The Demonstrate doesn't give you any additional benefit directly, right? You don't get to control the copy. Your opponents get to get a copy of it instead. So while it sounds like it's all downside, in a multiplayer format like Commander, you can use this as a political tool, right? You might have a shared threat at the table, a shared arch enemy at the table, and you want to help a mutual opponent, a mutual ally in this case, to deal with that threat. Maybe they have an answer or something in a creature form. Maybe they have like an Eternal Witness on the battlefield, and they have a removal spell in their graveyard, and you need to remove some problematic creature on the battlefield. You could be like, hey, maybe I'll let you get a copy of this, and you can copy your Eternal Witness, and you can get rid of our mutual threat together. So we can work together as a little political tool here, or like to ingratiate yourself. You'd be like, hey, don't attack me. I'll give you a free token of whatever you want to copy. So that's really sick. I love political cards like this.
The cards like this are always a blast in Commander. That and like either that or like ones that the whole table can get in on. So like Lethal Vapors and things like that. So I think this Demonstrate ability is going to be a lot of fun for politics.
And I like that you have control over it. It's a May ability, so you don't have to do it. Like, if things are going to go really poorly, you can just copy something for 5 mana, which isn't that bad. Plus, it's any permanent. And I really like that this has been a way Wizards has kind of moved ramp into blue in a sneaky way that I don't think people have caught up to yet. But being able to just copy your lands, copying 2 lands, that's kind of like an Hour Promise or something. Like, that's a fairly legitimate ramp spell that you can take advantage of in a mono blue deck, which is cool.
It works very well with the main commander as well. It's whenever you create 1 or more tokens, you make double that. So you cast Replication Technique with your main commander on the battlefield. You're not just making 1 token, you make 2 tokens. Yeah, on curve. Turn 4 Adrix, turn 5 Replication Technique. That could be pretty darn powerful as well. All right, moving on. We have another legendary creature that is Simic, brand new, from the Precons, is Essex Fractal Bloom. This is a 6 mana 4/4 legendary creature Fractal. So this is there you go. You get to see the fractals here. It's a blue and a green, so it's Simic colors. This creature has flying, and the first time you would create 1 or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Essex and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature, which can actually be very wild in the context of this particular deck.
The thing I'm most excited about with this card is the way it's worded. It's like Mystic Reflection, another new card we've seen, where it says if you would make 1 or more tokens. So I think the most explosive thing you do with this card in the deck is like you play your Hornet Queen, and then that's going to make 4 1/1 tokens. You can choose a Hornet Queen, or maybe you have a Trastodon or some other big thing. All 4 of those tokens will come in as copies of it. If you just choose a Hornet Queen, that means you're going to get 5 Hornet Queens, and then you're going to get 16 1/1 flyers. That's a ridiculous amount of value, and there's some other cards in the deck that can pull off a similar shenanigan. So I think it's actually a really, really powerful effect in the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Turning your random tokens into a specific biggest threat, the best value thing it could be on the battlefield at any given time can be absolutely ridiculous. All right, moving on. We have a card that is available to us also on the main set, in the Strixhaven main set, so you could open up in the set boosters and whatnot. This is the Moan Quandrix Prodigy. Let us know about it, Seth.
So Moan is a 2-drop. You pay a green and a blue. You get a 1/2 legendary human wizard. You can pay 1, tap it, put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or you can pay 4 and tap it and draw a card. Or if you have 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. So, yeah, I guess like a fine like pseudo ramp card / late game card advantage. I think the main thing I like about this card is in the early game, you want ramp, and this can kind of ramp you. You do got to have lands in hand, but then in the late game, ramp isn't very good. But what is good in the late game is drawing cards, because that's when you're trying to find your finishers, your combo pieces. So even though it's a 2-drop, it's got a lot of utility both in the early game and in the late game.
Awesome. And also, it is a legendary creature. So what would you think about potentially putting Moan in the command zone of this deck, as opposed to I see the shake of the head.
I love drawing cards, but I don't feel like it's especially synergistic with either the token plan or with the +1/+1 counter plan. So I think it's a fine card and it does cool things, but I don't think it really synergizes with the rest of the deck very well.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a good test here to whether or not you belong to Quandrix. Krim, can you read the flavor text?
What are they complaining about? It's not like axiomatic ley line paratrigonometry. Okay. Paratrigonometry is hard.
Oh, he was doing so well. I thought he was gonna get it.
I know. That was better than what I was gonna be. I was already looking at Axia, and my brain was already melting. Like,
put me on the spot with that one. Hold on, paratrigonometrics, right?
No one even asked
that's
me
right.
for some reason.
the professor would be disappointed, Chris.
Whatever. I math. Worst Quandric page ever. Math. Why?
All right, moving on. Next card, also brand new in the Commander Precons. Fractal Harness. Tell us about it, Richard.
All right, Fractal Harness. It's a new equipment. X, 2, and a green. When Fractal Harness enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put X +1/+1 counters on it, and attach Fractal Harness to it. Whenever equipped creature attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. Equip 2. So it's like a Hydra, but then you can just move it around, right? So you get an X creature. When you attack, it doubles. But if you already have an existing creature with +1/+1 counters, you can just put the Fractal Harness on that thing, attack, and double the +1/+1 counters as well. So really, really cool. I don't know what this art is. Where's the harness?
It's right there. It's on the on the fractal.
It's like it's around the neck. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's got like a harness around its head.
To me, I see him wearing some
fractal
sweet
dog.
headphones.
Beats by Dre.
Sponsored by Beats.
Next crossover IP. Universe of Beyond Beats. Yeah, this card looks awesome, and this kind of is one of the main support cards for this smaller +1/+1 counter sub theme. So as you can see, the deck is primarily about tokens, but the primary tokens they make are fractals, and these are 0/0s that have +1/+1 counters on them. So they're inherently going to have a lot of counters on them. Fractal Harness, in the context of this deck, is going to just double the counters of your fractals, which is already amazing. But not just the fractals. There are going to be other cards we're going to be covering later on that also just inherently get a lot of +1/+1 counters on them. One I'm just going to mention right now is Mana Gorger Hydra popping up on the screen. I'm very stoked to put the harness on that because the Hydra gets big fast. So I think this card is going to be very sweet. And because it's an equipment, if the creature dies, whatever, you just play another creature that has lots of counters on it. You equip it on there. You always have that constant threat of just doubling all the time.
And it's only 2 to equip too, so it's actually a pretty competitive equip cost. And I think this is a card that makes Dika a little bit more exciting for me. Like the big token theme, making a huge fractal that's doubling its power every turn unblockable. That's going to close out games really quickly.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. All right, moving on. We got another spicy one, Sequence Engine. Let's know about it. Grim.
Alrighty, so Sequence Engines is a 2 and a green. It's an artifact. X and tap it. Exile target creature card with mana value X from a graveyard. A graveyard, by the way. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X 1/1 counters on it. Activate only as a sorcery. So you're able to now recycle your creatures that have fallen, right? You could get a little more value out of them. And then also you could eat other creatures from other graveyards.
Thor gives his approval.
Yes.
Thor's like, this is the card.
My dog is right next to me and he's like, throw the burrito. I got him a stuffed burrito. So
Fantastic.
I really wish it was instant speed. I think being sorcery speed, it's still a good way to make big creatures, but it makes it a lot weaker as a graveyard hate spell, I think. I think if you think of this as graveyard hate, it's pretty weak. But if you think of it as a way to make huge fractals, then it's actually pretty powerful in that role.
it's still not bad though, right? Because I mean, let's say they don't have the spell yet. We can eat something from the graveyard, and it gives you more creatures after, let's say, you lose your creatures to a board wipe, and I think that's pretty sweet. It works in quite nicely with the rest of the deck.
Yeah. I think it does work well with the rest of the deck, and I think it is a good card. Just don't think oh, this is my graveyard hate spell. So I don't need to play other graveyard hate because you're gonna
don't
be
need
a little
anything else.
disappointed. Yeah.
Yeah. I will also point out, though, one of the recurring trends with Commander pre-constructed decks of Wizards of the Coast releases is they have a complete absence of graveyard hate. Usually zero cards that can interact with your opponent's graveyards. So even if it's not the best graveyard hate in terms of its primary purpose is to make tokens, I'm actually really happy to see at least one piece of graveyard hate in this deck. Kudos to Wizards for adding that there, because I feel like graveyard strategies are one of the most popular archetypes in Commander, the format, and also basically every
color.
deck. Yeah, every deck also has amount of graveyard recursion. So just like you want like enchant removal, creature removal, artifact removal, you still want graveyard removal. So I'll take what I can get here. Like, I think every single pre-constructed deck should have at least one graveyard hate card. And this one, while not the most efficient version of it, is still a very sweet card regardless for its other purposes. And it can double up as it, which is, I like it. All right, next up, we got Paradox Zone, which is a new enchantment that makes some fractals. So this is a 5-mana green enchantment that says when Paradox Zone enters the battlefield, Paradox Zone enters the battlefield with a growth counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, double the number of growth counters on Paradox Zone, then create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of growth counters on Paradox Zone. So it enters the battlefield with just one growth counter on it, then at your end step, you get another one of them, so you now have 2 growth counters, unless you added any other counters on it any other way, like proliferate. And then you get like a 2/2 at the very least, a 2/2 fractal creature token. Not bad. And then every single subsequent end step, you get a double that over and over again. I think this is pretty solid. Kind of having a sort of like Assembled Allegiance sort of vibe where you get this recurring threat every single turn. It's on your end step instead of waiting until your upkeep, so you get an immediate value on your turn. You start with a 2/2, which is kind of small for 5 mana, but next turn you get now a 4/4, and then you get an 8/8, and so on and so forth. Plus, it also just works really well with any other way of adding counters onto it. I don't think this deck has any ways of adding additional growth counters to Paradox Zone, but if you do want to add stuff like proliferate cards, like Evolution Sage, it will work really, really well with Paradox Zone. And I think by itself, it really fits the theme, and I think it's already a good card by itself.
Yeah, and like cards like that, or like Karn's Bastion, I think are just really solid for this deck. And I think this card is absolutely super sweet with the rest of that, because it's able to just continuously put something on the board with a 1/1 counter. That's amazing. Like that's a lot better than it reads, I think, for at least with the rest of the deck.
I feel like it's very slow. It has to sit out for a few turns to power up, but I really like how it interacts with some of the legends. Like Quandrix and Nev, if you're getting 2 of those tokens each turn rather than 1, then even the first turn, when you're getting 4 power, and then the second turn you're getting 8 power, it gets much scarier. And if you have Essex, you can start making copies of whatever the best thing on the battlefield is every turn. So even though I think it's a little slow as a standalone card, it's got enough synergy in the deck that I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think an obvious upgrade people would put in the deck if they own one is a doubling season, right? And this works wonders with it. You double the counters and you get double the tokens, and then those tokens get double the counters, right? So you can just go off really quickly with this.
All these fractal cards scream doubling season. You get maximum value.
This is doubling season deck.
Yeah, much. Seriously. You get the double the counters, double the tokens. My goodness. Yeah, this is going to be pretty sweet. All right, moving on. We got a powerful removal-ish spell. Tell us about Oversimplify, Seth.
Ooh, Oversimplify. This is one of my favorite cards from the entire deck. 3, a green, and a blue. For a sorcery, it exiles all creatures, and then each player makes a fractal, a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, and puts a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the total power of creatures they control that were exiled this way. So, on one hand, you're not really removing any power from the battlefield with this card. When you cast it, all the power is going to just kind of siphon into this one big fractal that everyone's going to have. On the other hand, it's a lot easier, I think, for a Simic deck like this Precon to interact with one big creature than it is a whole board full of going wide creatures. We have like Rapid Hybridization, we have Beast Within. So in theory, if someone makes a really big fractal, you have ways to answer that. And it gets around like indestructibility, it gets around a lot of hard to interact with threats in Commander. And Simic's not very good at wrathing the board. There's not many like quote unquote hard wraths in Simic, and I think this is actually a pretty strong card.
This has to be like the best card like in the deck for me. Like, oh man, like that. Like Simic now can exile, so that's so wild. Like a whole board. Oh,
I think this is a big upgrade to like a Curse of Swine, which is like the go-to mass creature exile in like blue or Simic. Oversimplify here also just works so well in the context of this deck too. Not only are you clearing the threat of all these things and just leaving them with a single creature, yourself included, with a single creature that you can interact with much easier, like Seth said. But it's also a token, and it also has +1/+1 counters on it. So basically, the creature that you're left with is going to be so much better than the creatures your opponents are left with, just because of inherent synergies. When you like then play Dika or whatever, now you can make your creature unblockable or whatever. And we're going to see a lot of other cards that can pump up this fractal creature token that we just made for ourselves, perhaps. All right, moving on. We got a new artifact, Geometric Nexus. Tell us about it, Richard.
All right. Geometric Nexus, our castle in the sky. 2, its mana value is 2. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of charge counters on Geometric Nexus equal to that spell's mana value. Pay 6 mana and tap it. Remove all charge counters from Geometric Nexus. Create a fractal creature. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of charge counters removed this way. So another card to help you with your spell slinger strategy. Ideally, you would play this and then play a bunch of spells, make a giant fractal. Like Seth mentioned, there aren't too many spells in the deck, right? So it's up to you to, I guess, add more spells to kind of
whenever a player
supplement
casts.
this.
It does trigger on your opponent's spells.
That is true.
Which makes it a little better.
That is true. But I do think you do want to be slinging the spells yourself, because what if your opponent's just playing creatures, right? Yeah.
But that is an interesting thing, that it actually counts your opponent's creatures too. So not only you should be casting, obviously, to get maximum value out of it, you want a deck that has lots of instant sorceries in it, but it will still just get a little bit better too, because it does count your opponents, which is kind of neat.
You want to pair up when your opponent's playing Niv Mizzet, and you're like, okay, cool. Geometric Nexus.
It is nice you can do it at instant speed. So if you get a ton of counters, you can wait until right before your turn and make the huge token, and then kind of get around summoning sickness and attack with it right away.
Yeah. And it's charge counters. I know, Seth, you love charge counters. So
there are synergies out there to add more charge counters. Although it's honestly, the way this is worded, you're probably better off just like playing another brainstorm and having that add the counter.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and also remember, all of these things are doubled with your commander, right? So like six mana for like a 6/6 is not especially exciting, but if your commander's out, that's 2 6/6s, which is very exciting. So
I think it's going to be way bigger than 6/6s. Like if you have this sit out a couple turns, I think you're making 20/20s or 40/40s or something in some games.
Yeah, it's important to know, and I think that's actually a good thing. Like many of these cards that we've been talking about so far are not like inherently busted all by themselves. It's all about building around them. So all of like these fractal creatures may not look as interesting by themselves, but remember, like, we can take advantage of the fact that they're tokens. We can take advantage of the fact that they're counters. And when you take advantage of both, that's when they become really, really good. And I think that's good design. Like, you don't want cards that are just like, oh, this card is busted, this card is busted, this card is busted, and I'll just put it in a good stuff deck. Like, no. These cards are all like good, but you have to work to get them to be good, which I think is a nice spot to be in. But then we have a card that is a little bit easier to get good value out of. Krim, tell us about Theoretical Duplication.
Theoretical Duplication's 2 and a blue. It's an instant spell. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control this turn, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That's exactly what I love. This is just a good card and easy to get like value out of. You can instantly copy your opponent's best creature. So, and if you're creating that token, you've got your commander out. You can make 2 copies of that, and let's say you've added a doubling season. The fun just never ends. This is exactly the kind of card I love too, and it's instant speed. A spell. This has to be like another spell. Like we've seen like a few instants in sorcery so far, but this kind of helps with the spell slinger. Kinda.
Yeah. a little bit.
It definitely does. This is like one of my favorite cards of the entire Precon. Like,
and
just like by itself, I think it's just like a really strong card. It's like essentially like a 3 mana clone effect They can cast at instant speed, and obviously you have to wait until your opponents cast a creature that you want to copy with it, and you have to have the mana up. So there are some hoops you have to jump through. But 3 mana, make a copy of a creature that's entering the battlefield. That's already good. And it's a token. So again, we have so many token synergies. It's like such a great launching pad where it's good already by itself, I think. And then it becomes amazing in our deck.
The flavor text is also perfect. You made it asymmetrical just to annoy me, didn't you?
It makes no sense. It's symmetrical. You both get the creature. But the dream scenario is your opponent casts like Rise of the Dark Realms or something. Like some spell that gives them a lot of creatures that are non-tokens. And then you just get them all. You get a copy of all of them.
Even discounting the dream scenario, though, like, I think it should be pretty easy to turn this into like a ramp spell, quote unquote, where you're getting a 6 or 8 mana creature for 3 mana at instant speed. So living the dream sounds really sweet, but I don't think you have to live the dream to make this card worth it in this deck.
Seth, I advocate for living the dream.
Like somebody casts a mastery animation spell, and you're like, oh, okay. I'll get a copy of all of them then. In response to Living Death or like Rise of the Dark Realms, boom, theoretical duplication, 3 mana matches.
Is this a graveyard hate spell?
It's more like group hug with graveyards. All right, moving on. We got Curiosity Crafter. Oof. This is a card that speaks to me on a primal level. This is a 4 mana blue wizard creature, 3/3 with flying. It has 2 effects on it, 2 abilities. You have no maximum hand size, which is great if you're drawing cards, right? You need to hold on to them, or else what's the point? And then the second part, the juicy part, is whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So in a deck full of tokens, in a lot of ways of giving them evasion, this is going to be drawing a lot of cards. This is essentially the token support version of like Coastal Piracy on a creature. And not only that, but it comes with a Reliquary Tower effect. You have no maximum hand size, so you draw a billion cards, and then you get to keep them forever. You never have to discard down to hand size. Oh, wow, beautiful. And it's a 3/3 flyer, so it's great. This is wonderful.
Token-tasky. It's token-tasky.
It's a wizard. It's a bird wizard. It's fantastic.
More birds.
More
Richard.
birds. I love it.
I was going to say Quandrix has a lot of birds/owls, and we haven't seen them actually have the bird type until Curiosity Crafter here. So,
well, also the headmaster or the dean of Quandrix it was shown in the previous card, Theoretical Duplication. He's the owl dean. So Strixhaven has a lot of owls, the home of owls. Anyway, so this card, very sweet. I think it's very straightforward though. It's like very good card. Next up, we got a weird bounce spell. Seth, tell us about it.
Perplexing Test. So 3 blue, instant speed. Choose one, return all creature tokens to their owner's hand, or return all non-token creatures to their owner's hand. So basically evacuation with a lot of upside if you were in a token deck, because you can kind of turn it into Cyclonic Rift. Like if all of Cyclonic Rift for creatures, but if all of your creatures are tokens and theoretically your opponent's playing non-token creatures, they got to pick up all their stuff. You get to keep your stuff. So I would say worse than evacuation in a generic deck, but in a deck that has tokens, way better than evacuation, which is what our Precon is. So.
And it's nice to be able to like reoccur some enter the battlefield effects that you're going to have from your own, like, because if you bounce all non-token, let's say you get an Eternal Witness back, you do it again, or you get to cast Desolation Twin again and get another 10/10 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bouncing your tokens is the last thing you want to do, because once they're bounced, they're gone. So this looks fantastic. All right, moving on. We got a big Peter. Richard, tell us about it.
all right. Release the Kraken. We have Spawning Kraken, 5 and a blue, 6/6. It's a Kraken. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 9/9 Kraken creature token. So we were like, oh, what's the point of Dika? I don't know what the point of Dika is.
Yeah.
Here you go, right? Make some Krakens, right? You thought I was a Fractal deck. Turns out I'm a Kraken deck, right? So a lot of tokens, especially if you have your commander out, that's 18 power of tokens. And of course, we've seen this in recent cards. It supports like the sea monster tribe, like Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, Serpents. They're all grouped together.
This is so sick.
Yeah, and
This card is so sick.
Insane.
it's a 6-mana 6/6. It's not too bad, right? It doesn't have any weird conditions, so I like it.
It's a little weird in this deck though, because we just you don't really have Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, or Serpents. So
You
it's
will
kinda like,
after you connect with it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
also
it's-
a little weird that you gotta. Isn't there a dragon that has the same ability for dragons, except it's when you attack, you don't actually have to hit anyone with it.
Like
So I
Bar
kinda-
Hellkite.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I like the card, but for me, this feels like a card that I honestly would probably cut from the deck and play in my Sea Creature tribal deck.
What?
Because it
There's not
does.
support.
sad.
There's not support for it.
There's so much
It makes
synergy.
a 9/9
Yeah.
Kraken, and you can
clone
copy it.
this. You clone this, and then you have
You-
another one. You just keep going. You swing
Our
with a bunch.
commander makes 2 9/9 Krakens every time, and then
you
when
have
you
to-
attack with the Krakens, they make more.
Well, when you
And the Kraken
actually
jokes.
damage
Yeah,
someone, you actually have to crack
Cracking a
in with
lot
the
of
Kraken
jokes.
to get the.
But you're in the
Kraken
color of
Kraken.
blue, which is very good at making things unblockable, right? Or you can
Yes.
give it flying with other cards as well to give it some evasion.
This is a blue 6/6 for 6 that make 9/9 creature tokens. I think that alone, 9/9 creature tokens that then themselves make more of them when they connect. Oof. I don't know.
Okay.
I think this is spice. This is a good way to win games.
This is a card you're gonna clone, and then you connect with multiple of them, and then you make multiple 9/9s.
Yeah, like
and then
the card we saw that makes whenever you make a token, you make it a copy of another token.
Yeah.
Like you copy Spawn and Kraken, have like 5 of them, hit someone. 40.
Yeah.
And then each one will make, so if you have like a bunch of spawning Krakens, each one will make their own copy thing. So if you have like 4 of them, and then you hit with like 4 Krakens, then it's like, what, like 16 Krakens or something like that.
yeah, you just
like,
actually become Aquaman.
Yes,
Like you run the ocean.
the value town. So yeah, it's like better. It's obviously better in a sea monster tribal deck that's all about Krakens, Leviathans, and Octopuses. And sorcery. I think here though it's gonna be super fun. I'm super excited. Next up, we got Guardian Augmenter.
Okay, so Guardian Augmenter is 2 and a green. It's a troll wizard with flash. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2, and commanders you control have hexproof. This is awesome. I think this is just another way to be very disruptive, protect your creatures while also pumping, or your commander specifically, while pumping your commander if it is a creature. So very simple, just basic flash card, and it stays. It's not like it enters the battlefield and it only happens for 1 turn. You get the hexproof, it just stays. This card is awesome and perfect for like keeping any I love it because you can also protect your Simic Planeswalker commander if you have a Simic Planeswalker commander, but just protection for your commander is always nice in Simic.
So it doesn't do anything with tokens or counters, right? But in general, like our commander is
It's like
is
a counter, though.
insane. Yeah, it's like a counter
See?
essentially. It's protection for our commander is insane. We won on the battlefield, and people will
Yeah.
try to use target removal against it. This is a way to just stop that. Even in response to target removal, you can get 8 target removal like a Swords to Plowshares out of your opponent's hands. They
Which you'll
wasted
pay 2
it.
more for.
Yeah.
It's a
They'll have to
target.
pay 2 more for it, and then you
And
can
then
respond.
get the
Oh.
no.
that is the insult to injury right there. That is really rubbing it in. I like that little synergy.
We're gonna go with your commander's protected with like a shield of math. It's just math around him.
You finally unlocked the formula for the perfect punch. I love it.
Wizards
All right.
has made a lot of these creatures that give your commander a slight benefit, and I think this is the best they've made. I think the protection of hexproof in general, I haven't really thought those cards were that powerful, but this one seems really powerful.
Yeah, flash 3 mana on a creature, just really good stuff. All right, moving on. We got Ruxa, Patient, Professor, the Bear Druid, Wizard, Professor, which that's already like top marks for coming up with this concept in general. It's a 4-mana, 4/4 legendary creature, Bear Druid. Whenever Ruxa enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature card with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand. So you have some graveyard recursion whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. And creatures you control with no abilities get +1/+1. You may have creatures you control with no abilities assign their combat damage as though they weren't blocked. So in the context of this deck, I don't know how many vanilla creatures we have in the deck.
I believe 0. I was just trying to count.
Wait,
I-
aren't
I-
fractals?
0.
No abilities?
Fractals, yes. That the main thing is the second and third abilities. So the recursion, we're probably not going to get a lot of value out of. You have to have a very specific deck for that to work. Most decks will not have that.
Mean a bunch of
second and
bears.
third, creatures you control with no abilities. So all your fractals in the deck get +1/+1, and they can all assign their combat damage as though they weren't blocked. And we already covered cards that wants to deal combat damage to players, either to make Krakens.
Hey.
With no
'Cause
abilities, the Kraken tokens.
Yeah,
Kraken
correct.
tokens can get in for damage. Boom.
To make more Krakens.
And then all our fractals can get in there so we can draw cards off the Bird Wizard. So it's like amazing, I think. Like the first ability we can't really use here. I think this is like a build around type thing. Like you build like a bear tribal, like Bear Force 1. You put Ruxa in the command zone and then boom, your bears are better, I guess. But the second and third ability we can really use in this Precon, and I think it's well worth it there. It's already a 4-mana 4/4 by itself, so I think it's quite good.
I just everything about this card is perfect. It's just a funny card. The flavor, like everything about it is just funny.
Yeah, it is great. All right, moving on. We still got more cards to go through. Seth, tell us about this card.
What do you think about this card, Seth?
Commander's Insight. X and triple blue. Instant speed. Target player draws X cards plus an additional card for each time they've cast a commander from the command zone this game. So it is Blue Sun Zenith with the downside of not shuffling back into your deck, but the upside that if you're the kind of person who casts your commander, you might draw some extra cards. So for me, it is strictly worse Blue Sun Zenith. For other people, it could even be better.
It could be better. I think in like a generic, like in your typical commander decks, this is going to just be better. Like people generally cast their commanders. We want to cast our commander too. This particular deck wants their commander on the battlefield because you want to double your tokens, right? So Commander's Insight's already drawing an extra card there, and yeah.
And your commander probably will die.
It will die. You will want to cast it again because it's good enough to cast again.
Yeah.
Wizard
It
saw
seems
my
good.
plan of there's a clause here that your commander has to come from the command zone. Because I was just gonna Rogak Cloudstone Curio and like cast it infinite times and then just Commander Insight you to death. But Wizard saw through my plan. You have to cast from the command zone, which means at most you probably get like 2 or 3 extra cards, right? Probably that's a reasonable number you get off a Commander's Insight from your Commander clause, or maybe a little more if you play partners.
Yeah, it's
If you play a partner,
fantastic
you
in
get more.
partner decks. But
Yep.
I could see this card being like a generic card that's maybe not a staple in all blue decks, but a card that you would reach for very often going forward in future decks. Like I will run this a lot. I'm gonna tell you straight up. Like
Is it really better than Blue Sun Zenith? We might
Yes.
get derailed here and talk about it for a half hour. But Blue Sun Zenith shuffles back in. So
I
you
think
can
the
cast
shuffle,
it and
yeah.
then find it and cast it and then target your opponent. I actually think it's worse than Blue Sun Zenith, but I still think it's a good card advantage.
I think if
like
you're
card
looking
draw
to
effect.
end games instead of loop card draw endlessly, this card is better.
Who wants
I
to
don't
end the
think-
game, Tomer, when you could just draw more Blue Sun Zeniths?
And ending the game does mean you spend less time drawing cards. So I get it, but like
You put both in the deck and you use Commander's Insight to draw the Blue Sun Zenith.
I still have
Combo.
PTSD from the old
Wait.
Border stream where we just had to watch Seth like draw ability cards.
is that just the new Splinter Twin, Richard? Just the commander's Insight and Blue Sunset.
You finish with a Sphinx's Rev. That's how you.
All I'll throw my hat in that it's better than Blue Sun, but the jury's still out there. I still think this card is very sweet. All right, moving on. We got some cards that you're going to be seeing in the Strixhaven set. So you can get them here in the Precon, but you can also get them, open them up in the Strixhaven set proper. Let's start off, Richard. What we got here? We got an uncommon.
All right, we have some support cards. We have Quandrix Cultivator, 1 green, a hybrid Quandrix mana, blue. So 4 CMC. What are we calling this? Is it Simic or is it Quandrix now? No.
It's Quandrix.
But we're playing Strixhaven. It
Green
has to be
blue.
Quandrix.
Yeah,
Eugene.
you're ruining my immersion. if
UG.
you call it Civic.
Eugene.
It's an UGG color, actually.
Okay, so it's a creature. It's a turtle druid. When Quandrix Cultivator enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic forest or island, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. It's a 3/4. Of note, the land comes into play untapped. It doesn't have any clause about that. So a 4 mana 3/4, ramp yourself a forest or island out of your deck.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
fine.
a solemn kinda. It's
like-
decent.
It's like a beefier wood elves, I guess. Yeah.
I think the placement of the Quandrix symbol is very off-putting to me, and I keep staring at it.
The UGG symbol, you mean?
Quandrix? Yeah.
Did they change the ordering, or has it always been like this? I don't remember. Normally
No,
they put the hybrid first, right?
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes
'Cause it's
sense.
in the middle, right? And even the green side is beside the green, and the blue side is beside the blue. I'm
just-
for this. I'm on team UGG.
Quandrix. My immersion.
Simic.
My immersion,
Simic.
Tomer. Stop it.
All right. Moving on. We got another card that we can find in the main set as well. Golden Ratio.
Oh, yeah. So green and blue, draw a card for each different power among creatures you control. Also, look at that artwork. See that big kraken, by the way, Seth? That's what's going to happen when I
Got a little
connect with
Golden
that.
Ratio swirl going on. I like
If
it.
you connect.
If you know what, it's a goal now. It's a goal. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
Would you play this as
works.
a card draw spell? Like, I mean, it seems fine. Like,
It feels like, okay, of cards I would replace. I mean, the artwork is amazing, but like the card itself, I feel like there's a better draw spell. Like even a divination might just be better here.
the only thing I'd
Be more
say is
consistent.
Yeah.
in the context of this deck, though, fractals seem like it does allow you to make a lot of different powers worth of creatures. So if there was
It
ever a
would,
deck
yes.
where Golden Ratio would be good, it's gonna be this fractal deck, really, because I think that's gonna power it up more than a generic deck would.
Yeah, like if you have Dika on the battlefield, Dika, you're just casting a bunch of instants or sorceries. They're all going to be different converted mana costs. And then when you cast Golden Ratio, you actually make a 3/3, right? So if you're already drawing one card off the 3/3. You got Dika, which I don't even remember.
3/3.
He's also 3/3. Oh, well, poo to that. But
I guess my thing is just like this card itself. It just requires you to have something also,
Yeah.
right? I want my draw spell to do something, no matter my board state.
that's true. At the very least, in the context of this deck, it makes a lot of creatures. Like creatures is this thing. So it's
Yeah.
probably better here than most decks, but yeah, it's not too exciting.
If there is a home for it, yeah, this
Yeah.
is definitely it.
All right, so we're wrapping up the new cards. Biomathematician. This is a 3 mana 2/2 creature human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on each fractal you control. So by itself, it's a 2/2 that brings a 1/1 on the battlefield. Not that exciting, but this is a fractal deck. So we have a bunch of fractal creatures that we're going to have on the battlefield. And if we have a bunch of them, then we get a good amount of value out of it. And then, we had that one-sided, that board wipe, the token board wipe. We could like bounce Biomathematician and all into the battlefield creatures that we were just talking about. Not the fractals though, and then get more value out of it that way. I think this is okay. It's not crazy, but it has a lot of inherent synergy with the deck, which is cool.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Eureka Moment. Seth.
Eureka Moment. 2 green, blue. Probably better known as Simic. Instant.
Ugh.
It's the Quandrix podcast. What are you doing?
My immersion! Stop!
Draw 2 cards, and you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Biggest takeaway, good lord, was Growth Spiral busted. it did almost this for 2 less mana. I mean, it's a fine card draw spell.
It's 2 Growth Spirals, kind of.
Well, you only put one.
You only get 1 ramp, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it draws cards. I like drawing cards. I don't think
Instant
it's like...
speed?
Yeah. Ramps a little bit, maybe, if you got an extra land. So fine value card that just kind of fills out the deck, I'd say.
Doesn't require you to have anything either on the board, so nice. I mean, 4 lands, but like outside of that.
The flavor text for anyone struggling with math, because at first equations were simply numbers, but in those numbers I saw a story, and in the story I saw a pattern, and then it all fit together. So
Yeah, that's why I failed at math.
Yeah, I don't see any stories.
I forgot the story part. Wait, is the story the Quandrix story? Because then I get it, right?
Did you say Quandrix? Like the blue-green?
Well, I was going to say Ugg. Well, the mana cost is Ugg, but the college is called Quandrix. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Anyway, moving on. 2 more cards. Study Hall. Richard.
all right, Study Hall is a common land. You tap it to add 1 colorless mana, 1 generic mana, and tap it. Add 1 mana of any color. When you spend this mana to cast your commander, scry X, where X is the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game.
This is a waste to me, essentially.
yeah, this probably.
What? You get to scry!
Well, no,
Right, you get to scry a bunch. Yeah, but
I never
Seth
guessed
only
When
has
is
a
Seth
commander.
ever casting his commander, though?
I mean, it's a 2-color deck. You can run a colorless land that comes into play untapped and gives you extra value. I think it's good here. In the context of this precon, it's good. But yeah, is it crazy? It's fine. It's okay. It's extra value. It's fine. You have extra mana, you get to scry a little bit when you recast your commander. Cool. All right, finally, we got Quandrix Campus. Krim.
It enters the battlefield tapped, but you can tap it to add a green or a blue, or you can pay 4 mana to scry 1. Now, this is a land I can get behind. This is a nice land here. Just being able to now, like, I mean, it could use the types, but sure, whatever. I'm just being picky at that point. Like the ability to scry 1 for 4 just on a basic, like, 2-color land, I think is really sweet. This is just strictly better than a Guildgate, better than all the other common cycles. Maybe not outside of the snow, but, like, yeah, that's about it.
Would you play this over a gain land? Is 1 life better, or
Yes,
4
I would
mana
play
tap
this.
scry 1 in the future?
100 play this. This is so much better.
Yeah, I will say this is better too, but for probably a different reason. Because every single time I play a gain land and everybody starts at the same life total, guess who gets hit first? It's always the person who has the highest life total, right? So the gain land is a trap. You play the gain land.
You shouldn't have played the cheaty land. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
I think this is the best tap lands we've seen. Discounting land types, which,
Right.
if you're playing like fetch lands and all that, that kind of matters. But discounting land types, I think that pay 4 to scry 1 is the most powerful ability we've seen on like these random lower rarity tap lands at all, period, in all of Magic's history.
I mean, also keep in mind these are commons, right? Like these are going to be in the regular set at common, and they're just better than the like Izagill gates and stuff that we play regularly, right? Even like the gain lands.
So Seth, will you play Quandrix Campus over Simic Guildgate?
Oh, yes. Easily.
So you admit the color is
You're on
Quandrix.
Team Quandrix.
Has always has been. I know, Seth. I know.
Team
That's
Ugg.
not fair. I like to scry.
Boots with the fur.
False equivalency.
All right, so we've covered all the new cards that you're going to find in the Precon and in the Strixhaven set in general. So just as a quick recap, there's 17 cards that are exclusive to these new Strixhaven pre-constructed commander decks. 6 of these other cards are just going to be ones that you're going to also open up in the main set. And then the rest of this pre-constructed deck is reprints. There's 54 reprints in the deck. And just to quickly go over the most notable ones. So we have a token sub-theme, obviously. And we have some really good token creators. We mentioned Hornet a whole bunch because it is freaking amazing. You know, you get a 2/2, and then you put 4 tokens on the battlefield, flying in Death Touch in green. Awesome. Hydra Broodmaster is really good too. And obviously, one of the best, I think the best token related spell in the entire deck is probably Rite of Replication. This card, even if you're not a token deck, it's like an enormous finisher. You can pay 4 mana to make a token copy of any creature, but you can also kick it for 5 additional mana, so 9 total, to make 5 copies of any creature as tokens. So not only is this like a staple in the Commander format, but it's fantastic here. And then we also have a much needed reprint with Azorius Predation. Makes a bunch of tokens. It fights a bunch of things. It's kind of like a pseudo board wipe in green. Very popular, but we just haven't seen reprints of it. So it was a $15 card. It's going to drop down. And that's also very exciting as well. And then for the counters theme, we have some really big heavy hitters. Mana Gorger Hydra, just a huge threat that I absolutely love. Master Biomancer, it's a great way to get a lot of counters on your stuff. And big shout out to a little froggy mutant, Plaxcaster Frogling, that gives target creature with +1/+1 counter Shroud until end of turn. So this is a great way to give all your Fractal tokens Shroud, protected from targeted removal and whatnot as well. So there's a lot of really great things here in the reprint section that is worth noting, and so that adds a lot of value to the deck as well, just like good ways to finish out everything to round out the deck. All right, and now that we've covered all the new cards and the reprints, just a quick analysis, a quick rundown of the deck itself, how it plays, how well built is it made. Generally speaking, when I'm looking or evaluating a deck or building my own deck, I like to use a little commander checklist to make sure that the deck isn't missing any fundamental aspects of the deck. And the sections that I have is mana, lands and ramp. And usually I have a 50 mana in the deck. 37 lands, 13 ramp is my go-to split. But this always changes based on the actual decks themselves, so it can fluctuate. But like that's what I'm generally looking for. Then I'm looking for 10 card draw, cards that net you 2 or more cards in hand. 8 targeted removal, split between creatures, artifacts, enchant removal, and counter magic. 3 board wipes, though you might have one more if you're creature light, or you might want one less if you have a lot of creatures. 2 graveyard recursion, 2 flexible tutors. But you know, if you upgrade a bunch, then maybe add some more tutors for more consistency. 1 graveyard hate, and then at least 1 surprise I win card or finisher, something that can win you the game if there's like a board stall or whatever.
Visionary.
Yeah. So looking at this actual deck, we're going to show all the cards in each category, but I counted 11 cards that ramp, plus 2 more cards that are lands that ramp, which is Myriad Landscape and Blighted Woodland, 10 targeted removal, 1 graveyard hate, though we discussed it's not the most efficient graveyard hate, but it is graveyard hate, 3 board wipes, and these were really fantastic board wipes, 9 card draw, 1 recursion, which I actually will now dock to 0 recursion after we talked about the professor not actually being able to recur anything in her deck. So 0 recursion, 0 tutors, which is the norm for pre-constructed decks. They don't want you to go around searching your library for stuff you're not familiar with. And then there's at least 2 big finishers. Biomass Mutation is a instant that lets you basically change the power and toughness of your creatures to base power whatever X is, which is great with your Fractal tokens because they're all base power 0/0, and their power and toughness is derived entirely from the counters. So whatever you pump into the Biomass Mutation, that's plus whatever plus X for all your Fractals, so you're getting maximum value out of it. And Return of the Wild Speaker, which is not only just amazing card draw, but it can double up as a sort of overrun effect where you attack with a bunch of stuff, your opponents don't block because they're expecting to survive, and then you're like, boom, Return of the Wide Spiker. Actually, you're dead. So yeah, looking at that,
Kraken.
Yeah, or the Kraken. You get Kraken with it.
It's fun.
So looking at the list, my checklist to what the actual ratios of this Precon is, it actually looks really good. I think it really nailed it here. It would have been nice to see some recursion, I think. There's 0 in the deck, which, whatever. Maybe I missed something here, but I think it was only it was 0 on there. But the deck is very focused on tokens. Has a good counter strategy, has a nice amount of removal and interaction. It's not so focused on doing its own thing that it's just going to fold if your opponents do whatever they want. And it has a good curve, and it looks really well built. So job well done, Wizards of the Coast.
I want to say the card draw in this deck is insanely strong. I think some of the strongest we've seen. Like, we have a lot of, like, I draw a lot of cards, like Return of the Wild Speaker, Garruk Primal Hunter, which draw based on the power of your creatures. So if you have a Kraken out, you have a Terastodon out, you have a Desolation Twin out, that's 10 cards, right? You have the Commander's Insight, the Blue Sun Zenith type card. You have the Owl that doesn't have a hand size, and you get cards every time you hit with a token. There are like many ways to just refill your entire hand with this deck, which looking at old Precon deck, they didn't really have that, right? They usually just have like 1 or 2 sources of card advantage, the card and engine, but this deck just has so many that you can just keep going, right? Your game will never end because you're out of cards, right? You might run out of life first, right? But you won't run out of cards. You can just draw so many cards.
Or library. I mean, you might run out of library if you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, because there's also some flexibility here. Like, we have some card draw that also ramps. Like, Moan's a really good example of that. Early on, you want to be ramping, but later on, once you've ramped out all this mana, you need something to refill your hand or dump all that mana to win the game. And Moan not only ramps you, but then later on draws you cards incrementally when you have all that extra mana and nothing to do with it. So I like the flexibility here. The giant X spells to draw tons amount of cards. Garruk's, it's just good variety here. It's well done. Job well done. So yeah, that wraps it up, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and thank you so much to Wizards of the Coast for this free preview. We were honored to share with you this really sweet new Quandrix, aka Simic, aka Uggs deck.
Just
Very
Quandrix.
awesome.
Just Quandrix.
It's Quandrix. I'm Team
Just
Quandrix.
Quandrix, yeah.
You have to call it Quandrix.
Yeah, it's Quandrix.
It's Quandrix deck. It's great. Thank you so much. Hope this was relevant to you. And until next time, friends. See ya. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking the like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure to click the subscribe button. And if you want to watch similar videos, click on the links appearing on screen right now.